Okay, this is going to be hopefully the first in a series of reflections. I just want to talk about what's going on in my life, in the world, what I'm thinking, how I'm viewing things. And so, obviously, there's some context as to how I got here, why I'm making this. So, I want to start by giving some of that, and then kind of go right into some of the deeper things that I'm thinking about, what's going on, how I'm going to interact with the world because of those things. Um, and so I guess just to start, I'm sure at some point I'll kind of go into some stories of long ago, how I learned from different things. But I want to start by just talking about the last 6 months because I think those have been some of the most pivotal months in my life. Lots of learning. Um, and I guess it kind of starts before then. I've got some notes here, by the way. That's why I'm looking down. But about a year ago, I graduated from school, so that's when I kind of left the traditional education system, and I went out on my own, started a business with my best friend Jake, and about 6 months ago is when I left. So for 6 months after graduating, I ran this business with him. We actually got it to a pretty successful point, but for many of reasons, I left, and I guess we can get into that. Um, at the start of this year in 2025, I kind of said I wanted to learn more about spirituality. So I signed up for some meditation lessons, started meditating. I promise this will relate. Um, so I had been meditating for a little bit, starting to, shift my perspective on the world. And that's kind of when we started to take off in this business. And I guess for practical reasons and for, deeper reasons, it just didn't feel aligned with how I wanted to live my life. Um, Very practically, it wasn't enjoyable. I was on the phone all day, 7 days a week. Uh, when you're at the mercy of Facebook ads replying to the lead when it comes in, you're never not working, right? Because when a lead comes in, you got to call it right away. So it just got to the point where I really could never shut off, which for me personally, I think is important. I like to take a step back and reflect, as you'll see. That's kind of why I'm making this series, Reflections. Um, and so, very practically, it didn't fit the mold for what I had envisioned it would be. Um, and more spiritually, like deeper, it just didn't align with kind of, again, my view of the world. Like I was on the phone all day selling a service that I didn't necessarily believe in, which is obviously like that hurts your own like sense of self when you're doing something that you don't believe in, right? And we'll get into that later, why I'm making this series and all that kind of stuff. But so about 6 months ago, I make the decision, which at the time was a really big decision for me, to leave this agency. It was the most at that time it was the most successful thing I've done. It still is, and I voluntarily left pretty much right at the start of what would have been an exponential curve. Um, I stopped and I moved to Bali for what was originally going to be a 4 month trip, but I cut short after 2 months, even though I had an incredible time. That was, I mean, to this date, one of the best eras of my life for sure. Um, just full creative expression. I woke up every day. I wrote about some really interesting things. I would make videos about these things that I was writing, specifically about creativity, right? So I was making these motivational videos online about creativity. I was writing a lot, posting about those things, and then spending all day at the gym working out. It was pretty much the ideal lifestyle for me, especially after not doing what I wanted to do before then. Pretty much spending my day again on the phone in my room. This is a trip. I go out there by myself. I'm talking to all these incredible people. It really was a great time that I actually voluntarily cut short. I was going to stay longer, um, and I had things rented for longer, but For some reason, I just felt like it was the right time to come home. Not sure if it was or not yet, but I ended up coming home and was home for 2 or 3 weeks when I got reached out to by Jake and one of the other partners in that agency business, Sofyan, inviting me to go out to Turkey, which sounded cool, so I went, um, which was also a lot of learning, is how I would describe that trip. Bali was fun, was great, was a lot of personal growth. This was more like challenge growth. Like, how do you deal with sticking to your ideals, with how you see the world when challenged? And I'm sure at some point I'll get into that, but it doesn't, I mean, maybe it does kind of relate to some of the things I want to talk about. So I guess we'll talk about that. Um, when I moved to Bali, I said I wanted to start posting content online. That's one of the main things that I said I did when I was there. So I started posting a lot of these, short motivational cut up videos, just sharing my thoughts on the world in a similar style, not a similar style as this, but just I started posting online, right? That was the shift that I made. I went from marketing agency to I want to make content online. And when I went out to Turkey, I obviously meet back up with Jake and this marketing agency partner, and um, it was hard for me to continue to post because it just wasn't the right inspiration and environment. If I'm going to be completely honest, which that's what I want this series to be, me just being raw and honest. Um, I felt a little bit discouraged by some of the people that were there, just not supported in this endeavor that I was very passionate about. But it actually ended up working out. Like, I think it was a good thing that I faced some of that challenge. Um, and while I was there, it's funny. I had a phone call with my friend Neil. Neil is probably the smartest guy I know, and we were talking about my content, what I was posting, what I was talking about, which was this idea of creativity. And so we were kind of going back and forth about the importance of it, and how he kind of agreed with what I was saying. And so I was asking him all these questions. He ended up recommending me a book called Empire of AI. So just so you have some context, Neil is in Silicon Valley. Again, he's one of the smartest guys I know. He works at this, Y Combinator startup, doing really well in the AI industry. So he recommended me this book about the industry, and obviously I wanted to read it. So when I got back from Turkey, again, there's a lot of jumps here, but I'll try to fill in the blanks at some point. I read this book, Empire of AI, or at least I start reading it. I'm only halfway through right now. But I start reading this book, which is about the start of the AI industry, and specifically OpenAI, who right now is kind of at the top of the game. They just made ChatGPT, and um, yeah, they're doing really well, right? So it's kind of about their startup story. And this is where I would say my biggest perspective changes have come in the past month from starting that book. I haven't even finished it yet because it's just been so deep. It's led me down so many different lines of thought and changed my perspective in so many ways. So I start reading the book and I realize that, oh, these AI companies, like, they're not good. Like, they're not good people. And that led me to pick up this other book called Digital Minimalism, which is really just about, being intentional with your digital technology use, right? That book makes me realize that the social media industry is bad. And like, those people are not, they don't have our best interests at heart. And that, of course, as someone that's posting on social media, goes deep in my head. I'm like, if I don't believe in the industry that I'm working in, if I'm doing work that I don't believe in, I'm doing the same thing that I just said I couldn't do with the agency, which was sell something that I don't believe in. So I want to dig deep into this. So this book, Empire of AI, and again, I'm really only halfway through with it, and because it's been so deep and it's made me think about so many things, I've had to put it down and pick up other books. Um, I would say one of the main things that I've realized in it is that a very small number of people have shaped every technology that we've ever used. And it's the same thing is happening in the AI industry. There's a very small number of people that are shaping how this technology is used. And that has made me think about other technologies like the internet and social media and things before that, and how, I mean, it really is a small number of people that shape how we use a technology. I mean, there is an infinite optionality for how the internet could have been used. But this is the universe that we live in. We live in the universe where we have social networks, and the attention economy is the biggest industry, where they sell ads and the user is the product, right? That's the world that we live in. But there's infinite optionality. It could have been anything. But that is the industry that we ended up on. And something similar is happening in AI. Like, there's infinite optionality for how this technology could be used. But the people that are shaping this technology are choosing to do it in this form, a chatbot. And again, there's a whole plethora of things when it comes to this AI industry that I want to dig deep on. But keeping to this theme, right, of a small number of people shaping the way an industry is made, is operated, and how it impacts the world, right? So this has obviously made me think about the social media industry, because that's what I was interacting with. I was posting on social media. And to be very straightforward, I don't like watching videos on social media, which is in itself its own concern. But if now all of a sudden I start to recognize and internalize, because I already knew this, I already knew that social media was bad for you. But now that I actually realize that, okay, the people who have made these things don't really have your best interests at heart. But you're perpetuating the system by feeding it with content. Again, it just makes you think, like, how do I want to interact with the world? Obviously, like, I want to make the world a better place. That's what I want to do. But you have to be intentional about how you do that. And so I guess, again, I just want to continue to refine this argument and think about it, because I'm kind of shaping it out as I talk. But I mentioned that book, Digital Minimalism, about being more intentional with technology use. That's really what the book is about, but there was a line in it that really struck with me. And it was this, right? So the nerd gods of Silicon Valley that made Facebook and Instagram, they're no different than Philip Morris, which is a tobacco cigarette company. It's just that they're wearing t-shirts, and rather than being after your lungs, they're after your soul. It's like super, super deep, right? It makes me think, like, the industry of social media and the attention economy that it operates under, of selling the user as like selling ads to the user. So the user is really the product that they're selling ads to advertisers. And it's this incentive structure for the company to get users to spend as much time as possible on the platform. But when you start to look at what these things actually mean, like, what does it actually mean to spend more time on Facebook? It means to spend more of your life on Facebook. Like, more of your life. That is what time is. Like, life is made of time. And it's this incentive structure that, is it really good for the user to spend 10 hours a day on Facebook? Because it is good for Facebook. But is it good for the user? Obviously, like, I'm not a user of social media. I don't like using social media. But I originally set out to be a creator on the platforms because I thought it was a better way of interacting with them. In my head, I see them as having so much value. There's access to so many people. How could you not take advantage of that and put something out there, share your ideas with the world? Maybe some people will see you. But again, like, all of this past 6 months has made me realize, like, you have to be intentional about the things that you create and that you give the world. Because that same thing of I just want to post some stuff out there and see if people hear it and resonate with the message. Um, it's a dangerous game that you play. And one of the big things that I realized a couple days ago that I promise this point ties in. It's a dangerous game you play when you post videos hoping that they'll help people, right? So I want you to think about this. What do you think is the biggest? I'm asking a question. This is supposed to be a reflection. Um, at least in my head, when I think about what the biggest technological advancement in human history, at least the first, what is the first technological advancement that kind of started everything else? I would say would be the invention of fire. Like when we realized that we could make fire, that's when it started. That's when the game of technological progress started. But when you play with fire, you can get burned. And that's what advancing technology is. It's playing with fire. And so when you go back to this idea of social media and AI and everything that we're doing to advance technology, sometimes you have to be very specific and intentional about how you want to use that technology so that you use it for its good and not for its bad. And I think that in a lot of ways, those few people that are shaping the way we use these technologies don't have that in mind. Again, just because of the failure that incentive structures provide. Uh, if you're the CEO of Facebook, not to single anybody out, but if you're the CEO of Facebook or an AI company or whatever it is, you have to cater to the shareholders. That's just the incentive structure. And when you do that, you sacrifice on certain values. And so, again, all of this started with this book, Empire of AI, that pointed out how OpenAI is not necessarily, it hasn't had the greatest founding story. We'll just say that. Like the founders behind it um, have made some questionable decisions. And again, a lot of that is just due to the nature that they had to cater to incentive structures and basically make money for people that um, didn't necessarily have the idea that we need to make this technology good for the world. Um, and I think the same thing has happened with social media, and the same thing has happened with many technologies before this, right? Like the steam engine or whatever technology that you want to point out from a couple hundred years ago. There was a lot of good that came from it, but there was also some bad things. And I think right now we're racing to this future of technological progress and innovation without considering the bad things that are going to come from it. And so, again, I want to bring this back to my own life. I think about how I'm posting on social media, and this has led to me actually taking a break. I haven't posted anything in about a month and a half because I wanted to really think, like, how do I want to do this? Like, if I really think this is not a good system, that when someone watches a short form video for me, there's a chance that they go scrolling for 2 hours and waste some of their life. Like my goal when I posted a video was that I want someone to watch this video and get inspired to go out there and create something. And sure, maybe someone watched it and turned off their phone and went out and started to do something. But how many people watched a video of mine and then continued to scroll for hours? And I fed that system. Maybe I started it. Maybe I was the first video they clicked on. And then they scrolled for a couple hours and didn't do anything. And then it kept the addiction of content scrolling and spending more time on these platforms. I mean, the more that I thought about it, I don't know how I can reconcile with putting something out into the world that I don't believe in. How could I be a chef that doesn't like my own food? This idea that the drug dealer doesn't get high on his own supply, right? Like, I don't want to be a drug dealer, right? Like, I don't want to be giving something out into the world that I don't like. I want to be able to sleep good at night knowing that I gave something to the world that I believe in, that I love, that I know is good for people. And it was hard for me when I realized that I might not have been doing that. It was really hard for me to post like that. And again, This also kind of ties in with me being in Turkey and not having the best inspiration around me. Um, but so I had paused. I haven't posted in a month and a half. This will be the first video that I come back with. Um, and it's going to be much different because I think before I had this idea that I wanted to play the content creation game, that I had these cool ideas that I wanted to share about creativity, and that I wanted to find the best way to go viral and share that message to as many people as possible. But I found myself in this role of, and I think I've done it every single time that I post content, which I guess to take a large step back is one of the things that I want to change with this. I have no intended audience for this. I really only want me to be the person that watches this. I just want it to be a reflection on my life, on my view of the world, that hopefully in 20, 50 years looks interesting. So I think that's the big difference. Every time that I've posted content before, I've been the preacher. I've told people this is how you should view the world. This is how you should interact with the world. You should do this journaling strategy. You should do this, do that, do the other thing. That's not how that's not what I want to do. I don't like that. I don't think that I would want to share those types of things. And again, a lot of this has just come from reflection. And so I sat there thinking, like, if these short form videos and these preaching style videos are not what I'm going to post, like, how do I intentionally use this platform for good and not use it for bad? And, after a lot of thought, I came upon this format, this documentation reflection style. To me, like, long form videos like this are good. Like, there's a lot of education that can be achieved when you watch an hour long video. Um, is that same, like, it's like, where on the curve are you with a 15-second video? Can you get some education from it? Yes. But what about the downside of it? So it's like, where's the point of diminishing return where you're starting to post something that actually hurts people and doesn't help people? Like, if I posted a 2-hour talking head video like this, there'd be hardly many people that watched the 2-hour video and it hurt their life. At least I would hope so. I would hope not, right? But if you post a 15-second video, there's a large chance that a percentage of people watch that and then end up, continuing in this system that's not good for them. So again, I think a lot of this, I wanted to be more intentional. So that's led to the decision to start posting these long form reflections, just documenting my thoughts on the world, what's happening in my life. And I think in a lot of ways, this is completely different to how I thought before. Like, I've never considered the implications of what I'm doing. Like, that's a world view changing idea. Like, when I start to think about those, like, what do I want the implications of the things that I make, that I create in this world to be? Uh, I guess for a long time, I just kind of had this, like, lackadaisical, I just want to create cool stuff, la-di-la-di-la, without ever really considering the stuff that I was making and, like, what the impact was. Like, how does it actually interact? How does it, like, yeah, I guess just how does it interact with the world when I put it out there? Um, so yeah, I guess this is a long-winded story that comes back to Neil recommending me this book about the AI industry. And I guess that's another point that I'd like to talk about here, my thoughts there. Maybe we can get into that another point, but um, yeah, I just think the world right now it's at this changing point. Maybe it is, maybe it's not. In a long time, we'll see. But um, I want to try to be the change. I want to be someone that I can sleep with at night knowing that I'm doing my best. And I think that person is more intentional with how they interact with the world, with how they use technology. Because if I just go on mindlessly posting short form videos thinking that I'm doing good, but I'm not really doing good, then I'm really not doing what I want to do, which is help the world. I want to do stuff that's good for the world, right? I think most people do, but at least I failed to consider certain things, and so it's led to some changes, and that's been a big thing, honestly. Like, just actually considering, like, okay, you believe in creativity, you believe in creation, but you actually have to consider how the thing you're creating changes the world that you put it out into. Because again, like, you could be one of those few people that shapes how a technology is used in the world. And if you're that person, do you want to make something that's bad for the world, or do you want to make something that's good for the world? Obviously, good. That's how I'm thinking, right? Like, I want to do good. I want to be good. I want to help people be more creative because I think that's really important. Um, and I just found this. I found that I had conflicting beliefs, or at least I had a belief that conflicted with what I was doing. Um, I was posting videos, but I wasn't watching videos because I knew that they were really bad for your attention span and they hurt your creativity. Uh, Realizing that I should probably address that concern has been a big change that I've had in the last month. I guess we'll move on from this point, but that has been, at least for the past couple of weeks, a major decision on my mind. Like, do I just quit posting? Like, what do I do? Like, how do I intentionally interact with these platforms in a way that I think is beneficial to the world? And I guess we'll see how that view changes over time. Again, I'm kind of at the start of this reflection process, but I guess we'll see how that changes. Um, Going back to a kind of a relating lesson, but different in a lot of ways. I said earlier that this year has been a big year for me with meditation, and so I mean I could go on for this for a really long time, but I think a lot of this self reflection, this analysis of what am I doing, how does it interact with the world, has come from meditation, from finding that stillness. I think there's an entire spiritual, religious divinity side to it, but I kind of want to just focus on the more clarity side. Uh, at some point, I'll talk about the religious stuff, but um, I just think meditating more has made me take a step back and analyze my actions. What are the second, third, fourth downstream effects of the things that I'm doing? And when I started to do that, I also started to look at the world that we're in, like this chaos of the modern world, and realizing that a lot of the things in this world, three, four, five downstream effects from it were bad things, or at least things that didn't, I felt conflicted on. Um, and I know that I've been talking a lot about social media and AI, but I want to talk about another big point, or at least a big idea that I have, um, which is this, and specifically how meditation has made me think about it. Um, so when I think about the internet, I literally think we created our own world. Like, we made a universe, a digital world, for ourselves. Like, we built one. It's right here. Like, we built a universe. And so we kind of have this material world, this natural world, that we find ourselves in. And then we have this universe that we built. But one of the things that I think about is, like, what is this universe for? Like, what are we building it for? Are we just making this thing to make something? Um, a really good point that was in that book, Digital Minimalism, that I forgot to mention was this point by Henry David Thoreau, right? At in his life, this was happening. They were building a telegraph from Vermont to Texas. been working really hard on it, but no one has stopped to think what Vermont needs to tell Texas. And I can't help but think that a lot of the stuff that we're building, we haven't thought why we need it, what it's going to do, how it's going to help people, like what the goal is of it. Specifically with this AI and social media industry, and in a lot of technological advancement in general, we've just failed to realize, like, okay, what are we doing this for? Why are we building this? What is this for? Um, and is this just being more intentional? I think um, a lot of this really has rooted back to that Empire of AI book, but it talks about how right now we're in this arms race to build AGI. Well, like I guess they've thrown aside the intentionality to the point where they're now just like racing after this thing that they don't even know what they're building. They're racing after artificial general intelligence, but they don't even know what they're building. They don't know if it's going to be good for the world. They don't know how people are going to interact with it. I can't help but think that we should probably take a step back, sit in stillness, and like, okay, how is this thing that we're going to build help people? Like, how do we want to use it? Because we're the few people that are going to get to shape how this technology interacts with the world. I think we should be a little bit more intentional with how we think about that. Um, and again, like I'm saying this, not being someone that's in the arena playing the game. Like I'm sure that there are people in Silicon Valley thinking about this. Obviously, Neil's the one that recommended me this book. But anyways, it just like that has been a really it's been a paradigm shift for me because for the longest time, I feel like I've been a really big believer in technological progress and innovation and pushing forward into the future because the future is brighter and we're going to have really cool things and holographic people and all this cool stuff. It's going to be colorful and everything, right? Um, but again, meditation, stillness, taking a step back, reflecting, and thinking about how is this thing that we're building going to improve the world that we're in? What is it going to do in the world? Um, because there has been a lot of things that we've built that haven't improved the world. That's what technology is. Technology is playing with fire again, and when you play with fire, you get burned. So we should probably be very careful about the fire that we're playing with before we get burned, before we let something out of the box that we can't put back in the box, before we make this social network that destroys people's social interactions. We should probably think about how it's going to interact with people before we just put it out there and shove a bunch of people on it, and incentivize people to spend 10 hours a day on it. And anyways, I think that's been the big paradigm shift is just like, uh, how are the things that we use in this world actually improving our lives, which has made me take a step back from a lot of modernity. Like I can't help but think that the simple life of meditating and reflecting and journaling and making meaningful works in the form of like arts and different things like that, I can't help but think that that life, the simpler life, leads to more enjoyment. So that makes me look at this universe that we're building, wondering why we're building it. Why are we building a telegraph from Vermont to Texas without wondering what Vermont needs to tell Texas? Why are we building this if it's not actually improving the world, making our lives more enjoyable? And again, I think in a lot of ways this universe that we built is doing that. But tying this back to my own life, it's just made me think like, how do I want to interact with the universe in a way that not only improves my life, but improves the lives of the people who see the things that I interact with the world with. Uh, I could go on for this for a while, but um, obviously you can tell this is something I'm wrestling with. Like, how do I use technology in a way that's intentional and good and honorable? This might be something that I reflect on for the rest of my life. I don't know if I'll come to a decision on this, but it's almost like these polarizing viewpoints, right? One side of me loves the progress, loves the innovation, wants to see the robots and the automation. And the other side of me can't help but think that the simple, slow life of meditation and deep thought is actually just more enjoyable and more fun. And so I'm like, why is there this part of me that wants to see things move forward and progress, which is, again, I think that's a good thing. But there's also a side of me that wants to almost like slow things down and be more intentional. And it's just kind of been wrestling with these two things. And I would say that's been the biggest point of reflection over this past month for me. And and it's kind of just what I want to document. Again, like I think the big thing with this series, if there even is one, is that I want to make things that I can look back on in 20, 50 years and be like, oh, that's actually really cool. Like, hey, Neil, you should go watch this video that I made a while ago. Like, it's a cool video. I think my struggle before was that I was doing work, I was creating things that I didn't necessarily feel were honorable or that I could take pride in. I think pride is a dangerous thing. Like, you don't want to be egotistical and prideful, but you should take pride in your work. It's one of those gray area things. Like, you should be proud of the thing that you do, not in an egotistical, I'm the best way, but I believe that my work is good and it does good for the world. And I just think, prior to this reflection and this almost deliberation that I've had, I just kept preaching it and preaching and preaching, and that just wasn't something that I was proud of. I've never posted a video and told someone to go watch it. At least not like a talking head video like this. I've posted some really cool like montages of trips and stuff that I was genuinely like, oh, this is super cool. Like, look at this music video that I made for the trip that I just went on. Like, I've been proud of some of that stuff. I thought that was cool. I thought that was a good piece of art. But a lot of the talking head stuff that I've made, I just haven't felt as good about. And I thought that it was something that would go away with time. I thought that it was something that as I made more of these talking head videos, as I preached to the camera more, I'd get better at it, and that at some point I'd be able to show people. But, and this kind of comes back to my own like creative philosophy, I just don't know if that's how things work, right? I think the painter that and eventually gets good at painting, they actually liked their first painting. Like, they probably, maybe in 50 years they'll look at their first painting and saw that they could have done better. But at the time when they made that first painting, it wasn't something that they didn't want to look at or see, right? Like, I think it's dangerous when you create something that you're not happy to look at and not happy to share. I think you should want to share the things that you create. Because that, like, the idea is if you're creating something, you're giving it to the world. You want to give this thing to the world. And I don't know if it's the right, perspective to give something to the world that you don't like yourself. And so a lot of this past 6 months has been like thinking like, how do I give something to the world that I like, that I'm proud of, that I can wake up in the morning and think good about myself for. And again, this is most likely something that I'll think about for a really long time, but it's just been really it's just a question of like, I want to create the best work that I can. I want to create great things that inspire people to create. Uh, but how do I do that? How do I best do that? Um, I guess a big realization was that it's not talking head preaching videos. My hope is that if I can reflect and document in a series like this online for X number of years, and as I reflect and document my own creative process, my own deliberations and thoughts and reflections about the world, that at some point this will itself be a body of work. So that's kind of how I'm thinking about it, is like, you know, hopefully at some point in time, this reflections series will be its own body of work. That's the aim, that's the ideal. But really the only way that I can do that is if I forget about it and just reflect and document. Again, like, I'm almost making these videos talking to myself. Like, I just want to talk about the things that I'm thinking about. And in 20 years, maybe I'll show this to my kids and say, like, look at Alex, he's so funny. He thought AI was bad, and now I'm using it all the time. Like, I don't know. I guess we'll see. Time will tell. Um, that's kind of just what I'm thinking about right now. What I'm reflecting on. What I'm wrestling with. These, again, like, it's almost like I'm letting all these conflicting views settle within me. Disputes. Uh, the push forward and the hold back, like the yin and the yang, in almost every area of my life. Uh, I could talk about this with my health and fitness. Like, I'm starting to wonder, like, should I be taking a step back so I can go forward in this way? And um, I'm just realizing now, like, that might be how I could characterize this, is thinking about the positive and the negative, the conflicting views, and how to balance that within myself. Um, that might be it. Yeah. So at some point, I'm going to make another one of these. I'll talk about some different ideas that I've got. Maybe I'll tell a story of how I've learned things and how I got here. And yeah, obviously this was a lot of talk about technological progress, but I've got ideas about everything and deliberations on everything too. So I just kind of want to reflect, and that's what this series is going to be. Just me thinking about the world, and how do I answer the deep questions? How do I make this life something that I enjoy and I'm proud of, and that I can lay my head on the pillow at night and, again, know that I gave what I could to the world. I created what I could. Hopefully that's something that will be a theme here, is me talking about creativity. Recently, that's just been the most interesting and inspiring idea, is this idea of creation. I really think it's super powerful. So I'll talk about that at some point, but yeah, that is reflection number 1.